Le hacemos la denuncia. ¡Vamos!
They promised a new nose, fuller lips, a tighter waist, basically a limited edition version of you. All it took was a plane ticket, a discount, and blind trust. What could possibly go wrong? In a world where beauty is on sale and credentials are optional, scalpels sometimes cut deeper than skin. These are not makeover stories. They are cautionary tales where dreams were anesthetized, nightmares went viral, and the real transformation was into headlines. Laura Avila, the discount that cost everything. Laura Avila wasn't looking for fame or a dramatic transformation. She simply wanted a refined nose, a small adjustment, a quiet confidence boost. In Dallas, the procedure felt expensive. In Ciudad Juarez, it was advertised at a fraction of the price. Same surgery, smaller bill. In today's world of beauty, on a budget that sounds almost responsible. On October 30th, Laura walked into the clinic with her husband, expecting to leave a few hours later with a bandaged nose and a new beginning. Instead, complications during anesthesia caused her heart to stop. Oxygen deprivation led to severe brain damage. What was meant to be routine became catastrophic in minutes. She was placed in a medically induced coma and never regained consciousness. The bitter irony: cosmetic surgery is often marketed like a holiday package, glowing reviews, polished websites, reassuring promises. But unlike a bad hotel stay, you can't simply check out and leave a 1-star rating. Authorities later investigated the clinic, yet it continued operating. Laura's story isn't about vanity. It's about trust, risk, and the dangerous illusion that cheaper automatically means smarter. Sometimes the real price isn't printed on the invoice, it's written in consequences no one expects. Nadia. A small procedure, a big consequence. Nadia wasn't chasing a new face. She only wanted slightly fuller lips, a subtle change to enhance what was already hers. In Buenos Aires, the promise sounded simple. Hyaluronic acid. Quick appointment. Safe, modern, affordable. It felt less like a medical decision and more like a beauty routine. The injection lasted minutes. The pain did not. This wasn't mild swelling, it was sharp, constant, impossible to ignore. When she called the clinic, the response was smooth and reassuring, completely normal. Just wait, trust the process. It was impressive how confidently pain could be labeled temporary. But the hours passed and the discomfort grew worse. Her lips swelled beyond expectation. Worried, she returned to the clinic seeking help. Instead, she was met with hostility. According to video later shared, online, voices were raised and she was pushed out, treated not like a patient in distress but like an inconvenience. When she asked for a refund, the answer was no. Soon after, she learned the clinic had filed a complaint against her. In a strange twist, the woman in pain became the accused. The clinic doors stayed open, the ads kept running, and Nadia was left wondering how something marketed as small and safe could spiral so quickly out of control. Angie Paez, when a trend turns dangerous. In the age of filters and flawless selfies, Angie Paez understood one rule very well: your face is your brand. So when she chose to undergo a bichectomy, a trendy procedure meant to slim the cheeks, it felt like a minor adjustment. Quick, popular, practically advertised as a lunchtime glow-up. What could possibly go wrong? At first, everything seemed routine. Swelling, some discomfort, the usual trust the process advice. But the swelling didn't fade. The pain didn't settle. Instead of a sculpted look, Angie watched her reflection shift in ways she didn't recognize. Features hardened, symmetry faded, the mirror stopped being friendly. Concern turned into alarm. A second medical opinion brought a chilling warning: this was no simple cosmetic hiccup. Her health was at risk. The procedure, sold as small and safe, had quietly crossed into something far more serious. Angie did something unexpected. She spoke up. Posting her story on TikTok, she showed her face and told the truth. The video spread quickly, cutting through the polished illusion of perfect results. For a moment, glossy beauty ads were replaced by real conversation. Her experience became a reminder that trends move fast, but consequences move slower. And sometimes the most filtered thing in the room isn't the photo, it's the promise. If you liked this video, leave a 1 in the comments. If you want us to change the topic, leave a 3. I really appreciate your sincerity. Maria Elena Leyva Corcuera, The Rise and Fall of Doctora Fit. At first, Maria Elena Leyva Corcuera appeared to be on the right side of the story. She publicly accused her former partner of medical malpractice, presenting herself as a woman demanding justice. The narrative was powerful. Victim turned survivor. A familiar script audiences understand and support. Years later, she re-emerged with a new identity, Doctora Fit. Confident, polished, camera-ready. She spoke about beauty innovation and fast aesthetic solutions with the ease of someone who had mastered both medicine and media. Television appearances followed. Social media praise grew. In a world where a lab coat photograph's credibility can look surprisingly glamorous, but whispers began to circulate. Questions about credentials, doubts about the procedures she offered. The phrase non-invasive floated around like a protective shield, comforting enough to quiet suspicion. After all, if it's not surgery, how risky could it be? Then the testimonies surfaced. Several women accused her of causing severe and lasting damage after aesthetic treatments, faces altered, promises broken. The image of the inspirational expert began to crack. Eventually, it was revealed that she was not a plastic surgeon, but a general physician working in aesthetic medicine. The irony was impossible to ignore. The woman who once claimed to suffer malpractice was now accused of repeating it. Her story became less about transformation and more about perception. In the spotlight, authority can look convincing until the consequences step forward and refuse to stay silent. Lorena Beltran, The Title That Lied. Lorena Beltran was a journalist, someone trained to question everything. Ironically, the one thing she didn't question was a title, Medico Cirujano. It sounded official, reassuring, almost elegant. When she decided to undergo breast reduction surgery in Colombia, she believed she was in qualified hands. After all, the words on the wall looked legitimate. And in the world of white coats, vocabulary can be very persuasive. The procedure was supposed to be routine, common, safe. Instead, it left her body permanently altered in ways she never expected. The man who operated on her was not a certified plastic surgeon, but a gynecologist working in a gray zone where technical wording replaces true specialization. It turns out a title can say a lot without actually saying enough. Lorena woke up not only to physical consequences, but to a harsh realization. She had trusted a label, not a verification, and that small oversight carried enormous cost. While she struggled to recover physically and emotionally, the doctor continued practicing. Life went on, appointments were booked, doors remained open. But Lorena did not stay silent. She used her voice, her profession, and her platform to expose what had happened. What began as a personal tragedy evolved into a broader warning about legal loopholes and blurred credentials. Her story forces a simple but uncomfortable question when it comes to your body: is a title enough? Or should we look beyond the polished sign on the door before stepping inside? Shirley Melendez, The Surgery That Took Everything. Shirley Melendez had already won one battle. She had lost weight through effort and discipline, transforming her body the hard way. The extra skin that remained felt like unfinished business, so when a doctor suggested a procedure to remove it, the promise sounded like a final chapter. A quick correction. A confident new beginning. Nothing dramatic. The surgery was presented as routine, safe, the kind of procedure many people quietly schedule and recover from with little more than a few weeks of rest. But shortly after the operation, Shirley's body began sending signals that something was terribly wrong. Severe pain, an intense cold sensation in her limbs, fingers stiffening in ways that did not feel temporary or normal. When she returned to the clinic, she was told to be patient. Creams were applied, reassurances were offered. It is remarkable how calmly danger can be dismissed when wrapped in medical vocabulary. But her condition worsened. Eventually, she was rushed to a hospital where doctors discovered a widespread infection. Her life was in immediate danger. To save her, surgeons had to make an unimaginable decision. Shirley survived, but the cost was permanent. The procedure meant to complete her transformation instead reshaped her entire future. Her story is a stark reminder that routine does not mean risk-free. Sometimes the smallest promise carries the heaviest consequences. Wisely Murakami, the surgeon of fear. In Brazil, cosmetic surgery is almost part of the culture. New noses, sculpted jawlines, refined cheekbones. It is spoken about as casually as changing hairstyles. So when patients walked into Wisely Murakami's office, they were not expecting horror stories. They were expecting upgrades. He promised visible results, fast transformations, and confidence delivered on schedule. Consultations felt persuasive, the kind of smooth professionalism that makes you think he's done this 1,000 times. And perhaps that was the problem. Soon, former patients began to speak. Faces that were supposed to look refreshed appeared permanently swollen. Features meant to be refined looked distorted instead. Instead of subtle enhancement, there were drastic, unwanted changes. Photos circulated online, before and after comparisons that did not feel like progress but warning signs. Around 40 people reportedly filed legal complaints accusing him of using substances and techniques that left lasting damage. The Brazilian Society of Plastic Surgery publicly stated he did not meet the qualifications required for the specialty, in a field where credentials are everything. That statement landed heavily. What makes this case unsettling is not just the procedures, it is how normal everything seemed at first. Clean office, confident tone, medical language delivered flawlessly. It proves that sometimes the scariest part is not the needle, it is the illusion of certainty that comes before it. Carlos Arzuza, the hidden operating room. Mendoza woke up to a story that felt too dark to be real. A woman had died after a cosmetic procedure, and the name behind it was not a famous surgeon or a respected specialist. It was Carlos Arzuza, a man operating in the shadows, far from regulation and far from safety. The setting was not a state-of-the-art hospital. Investigators later described conditions that fell dangerously short of what any operating room should be. Yet patients had walked in trusting the promise of transformation. The procedure that cost a woman her life was meant to enhance, not end it. That alone was chilling. But the plot twist was almost unbelievable. When authorities arrived to arrest Arzuza, they found him in critical condition. He had reportedly attempted to perform a surgical procedure on himself, assisted by his partner. The irony was staggering. A man willing to operate on others outside legal standards had gambled with his own body as well. As more complaints surfaced, the case expanded. Allegations of repeated irregular practices. More patients, more harm. What once seemed like an isolated tragedy revealed a deeper pattern. This story exposes an uncomfortable truth. Sometimes danger does not wear a villain's mask. It looks ordinary. It offers discounts. It speaks confidently. And behind a closed door far from oversight, it makes promises it has no right to make. Mariana Bridie, when routine turned fatal. Mariana Bridie was young, vibrant, and building a promising modeling career in Brazil. Her story was not about chasing perfection or tweaking her appearance. It began with something far less dramatic: kidney stones, a common condition. A routine surgery, the kind doctors perform every day without headlines. She walked into the hospital expecting relief and recovery. Instead, her body began to shut down. A severe infection spread rapidly, turning a standard procedure into a life-threatening emergency. Within days, what was supposed to be a short hospital stay became a fight against time. Doctors made drastic decisions to try to stop the infection from spreading further. Each step was described as necessary, urgent, life-saving. Yet despite every attempt, her condition worsened. The young woman once seen on runways was now surrounded by machines and uncertainty. The shock was national. How could something so common spiral so far out of control? Mariana had not taken extreme risks. She had not chased a trend. She had trusted a system that promised safety. Her death left behind anger lawsuits and unanswered questions. But more than that, it left a chilling reminder. In medicine, the word routine can feel comforting until the day it isn't. Alejandra Guzman, Beauty Biopolymers and the Longest Encore. Alejandra Guzman was known for her fire. On stage, she was unstoppable, fearless, loud in the best way possible. If anyone looked invincible, it was her. So when she decided to undergo a cosmetic procedure to enhance her figure, it did not seem shocking. In the entertainment world, touch-ups are almost part of the job description. What no one expected was the aftermath. Months after the injections, her body began to rebel, pain that would not fade, complications that refused to stay quiet. What had been marketed as a simple enhancement turned into a medical marathon. The substance injected into her body was not harmless filler. It triggered a chain of reactions that led to repeated surgeries, long recoveries, and constant uncertainty. Over the years, Alejandra reportedly underwent dozens of procedures to remove the material. Each surgery promised progress. Each recovery demanded resilience. The rock star who once commanded stadiums found herself battling something invisible but relentless inside her own body. And yet, she endured. She spoke openly about her scars, refusing to hide what happened. There is a certain irony in it. The industry that celebrates perfection rarely shows the price tag attached. Alejandra's story is not just about cosmetic risk. It is about survival, transparency, and the reality that sometimes the loudest battles are fought far from the spotlight. Monique Gonzalez, the makeover that almost went too far. Monique Gonzalez was no stranger to attention. Reality TV fame, flashing cameras, and a brand built on bold confidence made her image part of her identity. In a world where curves, trend, and perfection feels like a moving target, a little enhancement can seem less like a risk and more like maintenance. At one point, good stopped feeling good enough. She wanted more volume, more impact, more of that exaggerated silhouette social media loves to reward. The setting, however, was far from glamorous. Not a major hospital, not a high-end clinic, just a private house in Guadalajara where casual conversations replaced careful protocols. It was cosmetic convenience at its most tempting. At first, the results looked dramatic, but over time, something felt off. Proportions shifted. Her reflection started to feel unfamiliar. What had seemed like an upgrade slowly turned into discomfort. The body has a way of reminding you when shortcuts are not so short after all. Fear eventually replaced confidence. She made the decision to remove what had been injected before permanent damage could take hold. Fortunately, she acted in time. Monique later spoke openly about the experience, admitting how easy it is to get caught in the pressure of appearance. Her story is less about scandal and more about awareness. Sometimes the most dangerous part of beauty culture is not the procedure itself. It is the quiet voice that says, just a little more. Silvina Luna, the procedure that never ended. Silvina Luna was a familiar face on Argentine television. Model, actress, media personality. In an industry where appearance often feels like currency, small adjustments are treated almost like professional investments. When she chose to enhance her figure, it did not seem extreme. It seemed normal, routine, almost expected. For a while, nothing appeared wrong. Then the symptoms began. Persistent discomfort, strange reactions. Medical tests eventually revealed something deeply alarming. The material injected into her body was not behaving like a harmless cosmetic filler. It had hardened, spreading damage quietly over time. Her kidneys began to fail. What started as an aesthetic choice evolved into a long and exhausting medical battle. Dialysis became part of her reality. Hospital visits replaced red carpets. The transformation she once sought was overshadowed by a far more serious fight for survival. Investigations later confirmed malpractice, and the doctor involved was sentenced to prison. Justice, at least on paper, moved forward, but legal outcomes could not reverse the physical damage already done. Silvina's story unsettles because it was not an immediate catastrophe. It unfolded slowly, almost politely, as if giving false hope before tightening its grip. In a culture that markets cosmetic procedures as minor upgrades, her experience became a stark reminder. Sometimes the consequences do not arrive loudly. They arrive quietly, and they stay. Elizabeth Gutierrez, the beauty standard she didn't need. Elizabeth Gutierrez entered the entertainment world young, ambitious, and fully aware that cameras are not known for kindness. In that environment, curves are praised, symmetry is analyzed, and subtle pressure whispers constantly improve, refine, enhance. So when she chose to get breast implants, it did not feel rebellious. It felt practical, strategic, almost necessary. At first, the change brought confidence. Certain outfits fit differently. Compliments arrived more easily. It seemed like proof that she had made the right call. After all, in an industry built on image, who wouldn't want to feel camera ready at all times? But time has a way of softening illusions. Years later, Elizabeth began reflecting on that decision with a different lens. She realized the choice had not come purely from self-love. It had been shaped by trends, expectations, and a silent competition no one officially announces but everyone feels. The irony is striking. She had always been enough, yet convinced herself she needed an upgrade. Her story is not about dramatic medical complications, it is about perspective. She has openly expressed that if she could go back, she might choose differently. Not because something catastrophic happened, but because growth changed how she sees beauty. Elizabeth now speaks about self-acceptance with clarity, especially as a mother. In a world that constantly suggests we are one procedure away from perfection, her experience offers a quiet reminder. Jessica CDL, the injection that wasn't what it seemed. Jessica CDL believed she was making a safe choice. The procedure was explained as simple and temporary. Hyaluronic acid, she was told. Natural, absorbable. The kind of cosmetic tweak that fades gracefully if you ever change your mind. It sounded responsible, almost boring in its safety. For a while, everything appeared normal. Then the discomfort began, swelling that lingered. Pain that did not quite fit the routine reaction narrative. Each concern was met with reassurance. It's normal, it will pass, give it time. And time, as it turned out, was not on her side. Seeking a second opinion changed everything. Doctors informed her that what had been injected was not hyaluronic acid at all, but biopolymers. A permanent substance that does not dissolve, does not politely disappear, and certainly does not follow the friendly script she had been given. The realization was devastating. Multiple surgeries followed in an attempt to remove the material, but complete extraction was impossible. The substance could migrate, settle unpredictably, and leave lasting damage. What was marketed as a minor enhancement became a lifelong medical concern. Jessica chose to speak publicly about her experience, not for drama, but for awareness. Her story carries a sharp irony. In an industry obsessed with appearances, the real danger was invisible at first. It wasn't the injection itself that shocked her. It was discovering that trust had been the most fragile thing in the room. Michelle Renaud, the implants that didn't stay quiet. When Michelle Renaud decided to get breast implants, she was young and navigating an industry where appearance often feels like part of the contract. It wasn't a scandalous decision. It was common, almost routine. The kind of choice people discuss casually over coffee as if it were a haircut with a longer recovery time. For years, nothing dramatic happened. She worked, built her career, lived her life. Then subtle symptoms began to appear. Severe acne, strange white patches on her skin, digestive issues, dizziness, fatigue. Each problem seemed unrelated, easy to blame on stress or a busy schedule. After all, modern life comes with its own collection of mysterious side effects. Eventually, Michelle chose to remove the implants. That decision revealed something unsettling. According to her doctor, silicone had spread beyond where it was supposed to stay. The neat, controlled enhancement she had agreed to was no longer so contained. The realization reframed everything. What once felt like a small cosmetic adjustment now seemed like a long-term gamble. Michelle has since spoken openly about her regret, emphasizing that no aesthetic upgrade is worth compromising health. Her story is not filled with dramatic headlines or courtroom battles. It is quieter than that, and perhaps that is what makes it unsettling. Paola Durante, the removal that went wrong. Paola Durante had already made peace with one risky decision. Years earlier, she had injected biopolymers to enhance her figure, believing the promises that so many others had believed. For a time, everything seemed stable. No dramatic headlines, no immediate alarms, just the quiet illusion that nothing bad would happen. But the body keeps receipts. When discomfort began to surface, Paula chose to correct the past. Removing the substance sounded logical, responsible even. After all, taking it out should solve the problem, right? Unfortunately, the operating room had other plans. The extraction surgery did not unfold smoothly. Her wounds struggled to close. Complications followed. At one critical moment, the incision reopened, exposing what should never have been there in the first place. The procedure meant to fix everything turned into a far more frightening ordeal. To make matters worse, she reportedly faced resistance when seeking immediate help from the surgeon. The delay only heightened the danger. What began as cosmetic maintenance escalated into a serious medical crisis. Paula eventually stabilized, but not without lasting consequences. Chronic pain, additional treatments, and a long recovery reshaped her life. Her experience highlights a sobering truth. Sometimes the attempt to undo a mistake is more complex than the mistake itself. And in the world of cosmetic shortcuts, reversals are rarely as simple as the brochure suggests. Lucha Villa, the surgery that silenced a legend. Lucha Villa was not just a singer, she was a voice that could fill arenas, a presence that defined an era of ranchera music. Power, charisma, control. On stage, she seemed untouchable, which makes what happened next feel almost unreal. In 1997, she decided to undergo liposuction. Not a dramatic reinvention, not a desperate act. Just a cosmetic adjustment, the kind many celebrities quietly schedule between tours. It was supposed to be routine, controlled, predictable. During the procedure, everything changed. She suffered a cardiac arrest on the operating table. What began as a body contouring treatment turned into a fight for survival. Lucha fell into a coma that lasted nearly 2 weeks. When she finally regained consciousness, the relief was mixed with something devastating. The damage was neurological, the consequences permanent. The woman whose identity was built on her voice could no longer sing as she once had. The stage lights dimmed, concert halls grew silent. A career that had defined generations was abruptly altered not by scandal or fading popularity, but by a medical complication no one expected. There is a bitter irony in it. She entered the operating room to refine her image. She left having lost the very instrument that made her iconic. Lucha Villa's story is a haunting reminder that even procedures labeled minor can carry major stakes. Sometimes the cost of enhancement is not measured in scars, but in silence. Elizabeth Loaiza, the color that wouldn't fade. At first it looked like a bruise. Elizabeth Loaiza noticed a slight purple tone on her skin, something easy to dismiss. Maybe pressure, maybe a minor reaction. Nothing dramatic. After all, cosmetic enhancements are supposed to improve confidence, not raise alarm. She had undergone injections with the expectation of subtle curves and seamless results. Instead, her body began sending quiet but persistent warnings. The color did not fade. The texture changed. The area hardened in a way that felt unnatural, almost foreign. What had once been smooth now felt rigid, as if something beneath the surface refused to belong there. Doctors later confirmed what she feared. The substance injected into her body was not harmless filler. It was biopolymers. Removal was not simple. During surgery, the material had migrated, spreading beyond its original location. What was meant to be a corrective procedure became complex and aggressive. Tissue had to be removed to prevent further damage. It was not the glamorous before and after story often shown online. It was survival. As if that battle were not enough, Elizabeth later faced an additional health crisis, forcing her into another fight entirely. Through it all, she has spoken openly about her experience, reframing beauty not as perfection, but as resilience. Her story carries sharp irony. In a culture obsessed with flawless skin, it was a small change in color that revealed a much larger truth. Sometimes the warning signs are subtle, and sometimes ignoring them comes at a far higher cost than anyone expects. Lin May, the injection that changed a face forever. Lin May was once the embodiment of glamour. A legendary vedette adored for her striking features and magnetic presence, she lived in a world where beauty was currency and aging was the enemy no one dared to mention. When someone offered her a quick facial enhancement, it sounded harmless. Just collagen, they said. A small touch-up. Nothing dramatic. But sometimes the smallest promises hide the biggest lies. What was injected into her face was not collagen. It was oil. And oil does not politely blend into living tissue. Over time, her features began to change in ways she never expected. Hard lumps formed beneath her skin. The symmetry that once defined her image slowly disappeared. The mirror stopped reflecting the woman she remembered. She sought help, undergoing numerous corrective surgeries in an attempt to repair the damage. Each procedure offered hope, but none could fully reverse what had been done. The irony is impossible to ignore. In an industry obsessed with preserving youth, a decision meant to maintain beauty accelerated a transformation she never wanted. Lin May has spoken candidly about her depression during that period. Fame did not shield her from vulnerability. Applause did not soften the shock of watching her appearance shift beyond her control. Her story is both cautionary and deeply human. In a culture that markets enhancement as effortless, her experience reminds us that not every promise injected under bright lights belongs there.